Shows the school right here.
We're able to find where his house was, and we actually used that old map to get ourselves around the streets of Baltimore. Welcome to Mike's Morning Mug from Haunted Road Media. Of course, I'm Mike Ricksecker, author and ghostorian. We got our coffee on hand. And what I want to talk about today is the use of historic maps in paranormal research. So it's a great resource, a great tool to use, and there's a lot of tools out there that people kind of neglect to use, don't really think about, and I've covered a lot of them in some of my past videos, but this is one that I wanted to get into today. You know, I think it's one that we've mentioned before, brought up in a couple of other videos in the past, but I wanted to get a little bit more specific today. When I first really realized, how a historic map could be used in importance in today was back, oh my gosh, probably 15, 16 years ago. And I was actually working for a library system at the time in the IT department, and a friend of mine, we were both baseball fans, or still are. We wanted to hunt down some old ballparks and where they had been. And Baltimore had actually been a pretty good baseball town, and so there are a lot of old ballparks that have, no longer exist. They have been demolished, row houses put up, or neighborhoods, or whatever, stores, a lot of different things. So there's this one in particular that we wanted to go find one day called the Madison Avenue grounds. And we had an old map from the 1870s that showed it on there. Of course, completely gone now. It wasn't around all that long. The past times played there. But on this map was a nice little drawing of the ballpark. So it's one of those old bird's eye views created by an artist of the city. So we actually decided that we're going to go out there and check it out, see what's out there today. So we went out to the area, and again, there were row houses there. There was a church in the area. There was I think it was an AT&T phone building was over there. So of course, yeah, it's not there. We walked down where the outfield would have been, and the infield was taken up by the building. So we just kind of hung out in the area for a little bit. But the problem was in getting back. That this is before you had GPS on your phone and all of that. What we had was a map from the 1870s, and we actually used that old map to get ourselves around the streets of Baltimore and out to where we needed to go. So it was like very interesting that we were still able to today use this old historic map. Even though what we were looking for was gone, many of the streets were still there. Some have changed over the years, some things are different, but we were still able to use it to get out of there. Of course, being involved in the paranormal, the historic maps have become very important as we dig into these past lives and the historic buildings that we investigate, trying to decipher and decrypt where things had once been, because sometimes we don't have a building to go back to. Sometimes we're trying to find the origins of when a building was built. There may be people that we're trying to connect with the building, and the use of that is through the old maps. So one of these locations was Black Bear Church, which you guys may have heard the story a million times, but one of the things in trying to date the church, because there's very few records that we could really dig up on it, one of the things that we were able to use to date the church were the old maps. So by looking back into the old maps, we were able to determine that prior to this date, the church didn't exist. Then as you go through some of the old sets, oh, there's the church, and here it is for all these years, and then all of a sudden it's gone. So in between those periods of time, you can deduce church was here, and then it wasn't there. It was not here in 1906. We have a map from back at that time. The cemetery was here in 1906. The church was not yet built. By 1972, the church was gone. It left the maps again. So it was sometime before that they abandoned the church. We were also able to see when the cemetery first arrived there across the street from the church. So a lot of other things come into play. And so I think that's also pretty important about some of these historic maps. It's not just about looking down a street and finding a building. There's also additional information. Some of the physical surroundings are helpful. Some of the other buildings that are there are helpful. A lot of these old maps have the names of the landowners on them so that you're able to place some names that you're looking for, and oh, they were here and they were there. Or so-and-so owned this land. Because sometimes when you go back into the old records, like if you're going onto the county assessor's website, they may only have tax information back so many years. They may not have it back all the way, but the historic maps, you can see who actually owned the land at the time. And so that can help you out if you're looking for a specific person. You can also find alternate street names. Have an old family photo from Cleveland, Ohio that says 47 Charles Street. There's no Charles Street in Cleveland. But by taking some of the old maps and some information that we dug out about Cleveland, we were able to find out that they actually had a renaming of streets many, many years ago, and Charles Street is now, I can't even remember what it is, it's East something, I believe. We were able to deduce where the street was. House is long since gone, but we were able to actually place the house. And I've found that pretty helpful, doing family genealogy. My grandfather's great-great-grandfather's house in Mansfield, Ohio, basically sad, but through, again, use of old maps, we're able to find where his house was. It's right there, Ricksecker, on the map, and it's on the corner. It's now a Denny's across the street from the mall in Mansfield. So, but still able to deduce where his house had been. Sometimes you might be fortunate enough to come across a description of where a house or a property could be. So one of our adventures, we're trying to track down a family that we'd come across in a cemetery, and we're going through old books, some newspaper accounts that we were able to come across, and trying to dig up some of those old stories and finding out, oh, well, they lived, near this one street that was across from the cemetery, and you start to kind of piece them together looking at the old maps. Okay, well, that name is associated up here because it said, across the street from this person's farm, da-da-da. Oh, okay, now you're able to mark it. Another one was the St. Omer's Cemetery, which is St. Omer's, Illinois, which the town is gone. It's not even there anymore. But the last time we were at the cemetery, Shauna found an old entrance leading out the south side of the cemetery. It's all woods, overgrown now, but if you look at the old maps, it lines up really well with the one street, North-South Street, that the town had kind of grown up around, and so you could see that this was definitely an alternate entrance that they could have used simply, to bring up a cart with a body, horse-drawn carriage or what have you, straight up into the cemetery rather than going out and around all the way to the entrance that's there now. It would have been a much straighter track right up from what would have been their main street. So other investigations that we use the old maps in just to kind of pinpoint different things, the Swift Mansion Gore Orphanage area, really trying to track down the dormitories that they use for the children, basically up the hill from the Swift Mansion. And so we were able to find those pinpoints on the map. And then the Campsville area, as we were trying to deduce where the original schools had been, if there was a previous school on the property of the current grade school, where the old high school had been, because there were accounts of different schools around the town, and just trying to place them in their proper years that they would have been there was a bit of a challenge. But went to the county clerk's office, looked up the maps, and that really helped us to basically ensure what we were looking at. We're also trying to find a locust street, which was kind of interesting. We found a record of a locust street, but we never could find it on the map. We did deduce the location where they were talking about on the map.
What kind of threw us off for a little while, some of the descriptions, is it talked about a school at the intersection of Broadway and Locust, which we were never able to find a Locust Street. It had apparently been renamed. We're looking at old maps from like 1900 and 1915, and it shows the school right here. And this is Walnut and Broadway. And what we actually discovered, from that description, and then just going down there and really taking a look, is you could see that sure, that was could have been used as a school building. There's the corner. It definitely had been a church, and it's now a dwelling. So that's the original school. that's talking about there, not this site that we're currently at.
No.
So all this is very helpful when you're at a particular haunted location and you're trying to narrow things down. You might have a little bit of information of who may have lived there. Maybe it's not even a name. It could be a description, and you're trying to find a name to fit with that description. Old maps actually can help out with that in deducing who and what was around there at the time, and you can use the information that you're finding on the maps. Like I said, a lot of times they have old names of people, street names, physical features that may tie into a description that no longer exists of the property but does now. And then as you're gaining some of that information, you can now take the new information that you've obtained and start throwing it back into previous searches that you had performed that became unfruitful, because now you have more information to go on. So that's what I have for you from this morning mug. Just a few tips, tricks, ideas, examples of historic maps in the way we have used them on investigations. Again, very, very helpful. Go check them out. Thank you for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. Click the little bell notification to go ahead and get those updates and notifications when they come across. Really, thank you for hanging out. We have more to come on the Haunted Road Media channel. Friday Night Ghost Frights, Edge of the Rabbit Hole, Inside the Upside Down, of course all the investigation videos and more. Till next time.